is we are going to start this vocabulary foldable. So I will give you a real quick breakdown here because I know we did have a few people absent yesterday. I'm not going to go through in as much detail of how to put this together. I'm going to go through it kind of quickly, and I do have my iPad set up today. I mean, it involves some tech support yesterday, but we got to figure it out. So let me switch to my iPad. And I'm going to get out I think I have 4 different sheets of paper. So let me just show you what it looks like when it's done. And from this view, you can probably see it so much better. And I'm sorry that the iPad didn't work yesterday. Oh, here's my other paper. All right, so basically what we're going to have, you have 4 sheets of paper, and they're kind of glued and folded and or stapled. Stapled is the easier way, but I showed you guys a glued way yesterday in case you didn't have staples. And so let me zoom way out. Hopefully you can't see the mess on my desk when I do this. Zooming out. Maybe this is as far out as it goes. Okay. I'll show you this way for the moment. So basically what you do is you have 4 pieces of paper and you stagger them. Okay. So there's little flaps at the bottom, and then when you fold it over, it turns into this like flippy 8-page situation. Okay. And so if you are just making this today, kind of the way to do it is you start with your stack of paper, and it can be all notebook paper. It can be white plain paper. It can be colored paper, whatever you prefer or whatever you have available, I guess. And you just start by at the bottom or the top. You just start staggering the pieces. Okay. And it doesn't have to be very big, like less than an inch, probably. You just need enough room to put a label, basically, because that's where we're going to write some headings to start with. And so, like, you'll have like this, and then I'll have my piece goes behind like this. So see how it's just 4 pieces. When I zoom back out, 4 pieces, but they're staggered at the bottom. Okay. And then I just flip over the top like this. Okay, I'll show this piece under here. Okay, so I've got my paper like this. Great, and it's this kind of, it's going this direction. And now I just fold it. And when I fold it, I want to make this like where it reaches. I want those tabs to be about the same. And you will have 2, like if you're using colored paper, you have 2 of the same color in a row. And then you just fold right here. And theoretically, you could leave it like this. You don't have to staple it or glue it. Especially for you guys that you're not like traveling to and from school and like necessarily have this in your backpack or binder or something like that. It would probably be fine without staples. But I think it's a little bit more secure if you staple it or glue it. So to staple it, mine's a little crooked today compared to yesterday. Let's see. Uh-oh, I'm sorry. Hopefully it gets better. So to staple it, I'm just going to put staples like here and here. Like that. And now I can open like this, and I have my little flip book. Okay. And if you were to glue it, what we did basically is we just opened each page and where the fold was, we just put a little line of glue. You could either use regular glue or a glue stick, and then you just stick the next page on and you do the same thing. And you do that for all of your pages until you get the entire book. All right, so I know if you were gone yesterday, that was probably really fast. And I'm sorry about that. I hope that you're able to stay caught up with us. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to put on all of our headings to start with. Okay, so across the front, let me get a nice black marker here. The title of our book is just going to be Angle Relationships. And so we're going to write Angle Relationships. We'll write that kind of big, and you can decorate it if you want to. Okay, so angle relationship. I'm gonna make my A a little fancy. Let's turn, I think an A is a nice, it's like kind of a little built-in angle here, isn't it? So I'm gonna turn that into a little angle. You don't have to do that, but you can. You can try to, or you can add little angles around it, or picture of a protractor, whatever you would like. What I didn't share, I'm going to flip real quick because I really probably should have shared this to start with. So you know, I'll flip back over to angle relationships here in a minute. As we go through this foldable, okay, please follow along and write what I'm writing. Also, if you need me to go slower, send me a chat, okay, or just unmute and say something to me as well. And then this is really, the whole point of this is to be a resource for you because there is so much vocabulary in this unit. And as you're working this week, next week, between Thanksgiving and winter break, as we have all this vocabulary, I want an easy place that you guys can flip back to and look upwards if you need to. I also think just writing things out is really helpful to committing things to memory. And we haven't done a lot of writing things out this year just due to the nature of the year. And I think this is something that's worth spending a little time on the vocabulary. Like I explained yesterday, after Thanksgiving break, when we come back, we'll go into kind of another part 2 of all of this. So you guys have seen all the vocabulary for part 1, maybe haven't worked with it a ton, but you'll have activities at the end of the day today and tomorrow and next Tuesday, where you'll work with this vocabulary a little bit more. But then after Thanksgiving break, we're going to kind of have a whole new set of vocabulary. And so, yeah, I just think it's really important that we have this committed to memory. And so, but the way that you're going to show me that you did this is just real quick. You're going to, under your camera, either take some pictures, like flip through. I think that's the harder way to do it. I think an easier way would be to turn on the video and just like go through. When it's done, you can just like flip through the pages and you don't have to explain it or anything. It's just like showing me like, yes, Miss Reilly-Harden, I followed along. If we were in the classroom right now, it would be something where I would like go around and just have like a little clipboard and like check it off that you did it. Yes, perfect, Ben. Yeah. And we maybe could do that too if you guys want to when we finish, if we have time. You guys, maybe I could just get my clipboard and you guys could flip through right here on the camera. It just takes a long time for like 30 people to do that. So that's why I thought a little video just might be a better use for our time. All right, so back to the foldable. I just didn't want anybody to think like to not be following along and not writing this down and then say, well, I wasn't sure what I was going to have to turn in. Okay. Ooh, that made me nervous for a second. All right. So the next thing we're going to do, we're going to write all of these little tabs out so we know ahead of time what we're going to have. And so the first one, so on your first tab, we're going to put what is an angle. The second one is types of angles. The third one is naming and measuring angles. The next one is adjacent and non-adjacent angles. The next one is complementary and supplementary angles. The next one is vertical angles. And the final one is finding unknown angles. So I'll give you just a second to get caught up on all of those. All right, so as we go through each one, basically what I'm going to do is I am going to kind of tell you about where we're going to put things on the page so you don't run out of room to start with. And then we'll kind of go through it. I may ask you some questions for you to respond to in the chat. Okay, so be ready for that as well, please. Okay, sorry, the sun is a little bit crazy here. I hope everybody can see that okay. I might be able to block the sun a little bit more. Oh yeah, I think that's maybe a little bit better. Okay, so what is an angle? So what we're going to do here is we're going to write at the top about like this big. We're going to write a definition. Okay, and then I'm going to draw two pictures. I'm going to put a picture here and a picture here. And then next to the second picture, I am going to put like a little bit of an explanation. And so as you're spacing it out, when you write the definition, don't write the definition to take up the whole block because you're going to need room for a little bit of a picture. Okay. All right. So the technical definition of an angle, I'll read it first and then I'll write it. An angle is a geometric shape that's formed when two rays share a common endpoint. That endpoint is called a vertex. So we have an angle is a geometric shape that is formed when two rays share a common endpoint. And then in parentheses, I'm going to write vertex. That common endpoint is called the vertex. All right, so the first picture I'm going to draw is just kind of your like stereotypical angle. If somebody said to draw, told you, hey, draw an angle on your paper, probably I would guess a large percentage of people would draw an angle that looks like this. So maybe a working marker would help. I thought it might be fun to use some different colors here. Okay, so just draw an angle. And then we're going to label some things on it. So this point here, that's called your vertex. Okay. Often, but not always, you will see points. Like if you have just a basic angle like this, you'll see points. And that's to show that this line here, this is called a ray. This is called another ray. You can also, sometimes these will be called sides of the angle. And specifically, they're called sides when you're talking about an angle like in a shape. Like, so for, whoa, that fits pretty good. For example, if I had this, this rhombus, and I was talking about this angle right here, I would say that this is a side of the angle and this is a side of the angle because those are the actual sides of the shape. When you see an angle that's kind of that it isn't like part of like a polygon, then you may see it more called like a ray instead of a side. Okay. The other thing I do want you to label, or I do want you to write, is put an arc in here. Okay. And that arc, what that does is that shows the actual part that we're measuring. Because it is possible, and we'll talk about this on the next page, it is possible that we would be looking at this part of the angle on the outside, okay, and not this inside measurement. And so the arc tells you which part of the angle you're looking at, where you're measuring. All right, the next little picture we're going to draw is about our, the fact that angles are about rotation. So let's see if this will work here. All right, if this is at, I don't think I have a smaller one. Oh, this is the only one I have. Okay. If these are my two rays right here, and I rotate my rays to make angles all the way around like that, what shape does that rotation make? Can you tell me in the chat? What shape is this rotation making? Circle. Circle. Yeah. It is a circle. And so in the chat, please to me, if you know what the measurement of a full circle is, can you type that in the chat? How many degrees? Okay, awesome. So I'm seeing a lot of 360. It is 360 degrees. So a full circle, 360 degrees. Okay. So if we go a fourth of a circle of rotation, how many degrees is that? Type in the chat. Okay, good. It is 90 degrees. What if we go a half of a circle of rotation? How many degrees is that? Type that in the chat. So if a fourth of a rotation is 90 degrees, okay, a fourth of a rotation is 90, then a whole half of a rotation would be two 90s together. So 90 times 2, which is 180. Okay, so what if I go 3/4? So 3/4 of a rotation. So I'm talking about the rotation that I went all the way around like this. How many degrees would that be? So we can think of for this one, if we're not sure, we can think of 390s because it would be 90, 90, 90. And so think 3 times 90, kind of a faster way to do that. You could do 3 times 9. And then instead of just 3 times 9, since it's tens, 3 times 90, you can add a 0 on the end. So that one is 270. Okay, and then, so that was this one. And then a full rotation is back to 360 degrees. Okay, and so to illustrate this is kind of how angles are based upon the rotation in the shape of a circle. We're going to draw what looks like kind of like a little coordinate plane. Okay, so I'm going to draw here. I'm going to draw like this. And we're going to write our angles of rotation if we're to rotate all the way around. So going right to the right, this would be where 0 degree is. 0 degrees is. Okay, don't forget to be writing this down. Straight up and down is 90 degrees. Then to the left is 180 degrees. Straight down is 270. And then back to where we started is 360 degrees. And your angle it's not always necessarily going to start pointed to the right like that with the 0. So sometimes if your angle is turned or whatever, or like in a different position, the 0 might be somewhere else. Okay, but this is kind of the general way of writing it. And then to show that rotation, we do want to actually draw a circle in here. So I'm going to draw a pretty big circle here to show that rotation, that this is like a circle. Put like a little arrow on the end. So the meaning here of the circle is just to show rotation. That's what angles are about. They're about rotation. Okay, and then the last thing we're going to write on this page is we're going to write about what makes a degree. So when we're talking about degrees, each degree is 1/60th of a turn. Okay, so we just talked about a fourth of a turn is 90 degrees. Okay, and a half a turn is 180 degrees, and 3/4 of a turn is 270 degrees. Well, if we do 1/360th of a turn, so it's a tiny, tiny, tiny little turn, that is what 1 degree is. And it's hard, it would be hard for us to even draw it because it would be so close to the 0. So I'm going to write an angle that turns 1/360th of a circle is 1 degree. That's just a period at the end of the sentence. That's all that is. All right. So make sure you have all that on that page, and then we're going to go to our second page. Okay, so our second page is types of angles. And so we have 4 kind of basic types of angles that you guys probably learned about in elementary school. And then we've got 3 more that 2 of them you probably understand the vocabulary that goes with them, and then the third one may be new vocabulary for you. So as I plan this out on my paper, just so I show you, just to make sure you guys have enough room. We got blurry there for a minute. I'm going to we're going to have 4 angles down here. So I'm just going to kind of divide this out. You don't need to necessarily do this. I just want you to kind of know about how big your picture should be. So we're going to put our 4 main types of angles here. And then we'll put 3 more up at the top. And for each one, we're going to put the name of the angle. So the type of angle, we're going to draw a little picture. And then we're going to put what the degree measures are for those types of angles. All right, so our first angle, we're going to start with angles that are between 0 and 90. So angles that are in this region here, so between 0 and 90. Can you type in the chat if you know the term of an angle that looks like this? Very good. Those are acute angles. So let's do acute. And then you can draw any acute angle. And then under that, we're going to say acute angles are greater than 0 degrees and less than 90 degrees. All right, what if I have an angle that's exactly 90 degrees? Can you tell me in the chat what an angle that's exactly 90 degrees is called? Yeah, this is a right angle. So I want you guys to try really hard here to actually get a right angle. So we might have to draw this one a little bit more, a little slower. Okay, so what's a little bit different about a right angle is if you know it's a right angle, or if you are given the information that it's a right angle, you're going to see a little square in instead of an arc. Okay, so anytime you see that little square on an angle, you know it's 90 degrees. That's like an official symbol for 90 degrees. And so you won't always see the 90 degrees written out. You may just see that little square. Okay. That doesn't mean that every right angle is going to have a little square in it, because like sometimes especially in like a problem where you're trying to find lots of missing angles, If one of them happens to be 90 degrees, you won't see that if that's part of the problem if you're trying to figure it out. Because if they put the box there, if they put the little square there, then you wouldn't have to figure it out. You'd already know it, right? And so, but when you see the little square, that does mean 90 degrees. So for our angle measures here, we're going to write this is exactly 90 degrees. Okay, what about an angle that's greater than 90 and less than 180? So angles that look like this, what are those called? Can you guys tell me in the chat? Right, nice. Those are obtuse angles. So we need to draw this one greater than 90 degrees. So I'm going to draw it like this. And so our obtuse angles measure greater than 90 degrees and less than 180 degrees. Okay, what if I have an angle that's exactly 180 degrees? What's that called? Can you put it in the chat? Nice job. It is straight. It's a straight angle. So something different when we draw this one, we want to make sure to indicate that it is actually that we're still talking about two rays. And the way we're going to do that is when we draw our line here, we want to put a vertex in the middle like that, and then show that rotation around the vertex. And so then we're going to write for our measurement that that is exactly 180 degrees. Okay, so for three kind of bonus types of angles, and these you don't see quite as often. Let's see if I can, hopefully you guys are good there on the bottom. If not, I'll pull it up at the end so you can see all of these. We've got an angle that looks just like this. Okay, so that is like, that's like if I have just like this. So this shows no rotation at all. So that is a zero angle. So that's like what you're drawing there. It's two rays right on top of each other. Okay, and so it looks like one ray, but it's actually two. And that is exactly 0 degrees. Okay, the next one looks the same, kind of. So it is, if we make this rotation all the way around and our rays are still on top of each other, okay? So to start our picture, it looks the same, but now to show the rotation, I'm going to draw a little circle like this. Sometimes you even see like a little arrow at the end to show that. Does anybody know what type of angle that's called? It starts with the letter F. All right, not a lot of activity in the chat for this one. It is called a full angle. And that means like full rotation. Okay, and that is exactly 360 degrees. And then our third kind of bonus type of angle happens when you go past a straight line. Okay, so let's say I'm looking at this rotation here, and I go all the way like this, and then I go past a straight line, and so the rotation has been on the outside here, this much. Tell me in the chat if you remember what that is called. Ooh, somebody got it. That's good. My hint to you guys is it starts with the letter R. Okay, the way I'm going to draw it, I'm going to draw one ray going this way, and I'm going to draw another ray kind of going down somewhere over here. I'm going to draw my rotation on the outside. It's called a reflex angle. We won't talk a whole lot about reflex angles in 8th grade. You will in geometry. That vocabulary will become more, you'll see it a little bit more often when you work the types of problems that you'll work in geometry. But we will have some, you will encounter some angles that are greater than 180 on the Desmos thing we're going to work on in a little bit. Oh, whoops. I shouldn't say exactly. You're going to see some reflex angles. So this should say greater than 180 degrees and less than 360 degrees. Let me pull this up, sorry, so you can see all of them. Okay, I'll give you another minute here. The next section, naming and measuring angles, is a little bit shorter. And we're just going to draw two pictures. So we're going to draw a picture here and a picture here. Not actually going to have any definitions. We're going to have some symbols. Okay? So the first one, I want you to draw an acute angle like this. And I want you to label it. You're going to have a point on this ray that is A, a point on this ray that is C, and our vertex is going to be B. All right, please tell me in the chat, what is one way to name this angle? How could I name it with letters? Okay, I see some correct and some incorrect. Here's some correct ones that I see. And so this is where it's hard to type in the chat. It's hard to type symbols. But if you're to write this out, like on paper, like we're going to do right now, we're going to use a symbol to stand for the word angle. So the symbol that stands for the word angle is, it's like a little like mini angle like that. It kind of looks like a less than sign, but it's more turned on its side. So it has like kind of a flat bottom. And so one way to name this angle is angle ABC. Okay, so please make sure you have the angle sign. Another way to name this angle, so ABC would be like starting at this right and goes A, B, C. Another way to name this angle is angle, and I saw some people put this in the chat, C, B, A. Okay, so angle C, B, A. Oops. So one way that does not work is you cannot, for this angle here, if we're talking about this angle, you can't say CAB. Okay, because that CAB, CAB would actually be this angle up here. Okay, because you have to kind of trace it with your finger, with your eyes. And if we look at, I'm going to find here, this will work, will work nice. If you look at both of these, notice the B is in the middle. That B is the vertex. So the vertex is always the middle letter. There is one other way, though, to name this angle. And it's because it's a really simple angle. Does anybody think of an even simpler way to name it rather than A, B, C, or C, B, A? Type it in the chat if you can think of it. Yeah, awesome. It is just, you could just name it this one angle B. Okay, so you can name an angle only by its vertex, and that totally works. The only thing you have to be careful of is it only works when there's one angle that you see at the vertex. So the next picture we draw, we're going to have multiple angles that meet at a vertex, and you won't be able to just use one letter. Okay, so you have to use more than one letter to make it clear. All right, so the second picture we're going to draw, I want you to draw an obtuse angle like this. And then I want you to add a ray that cuts your obtuse angle into two different acute angles. And then the way that we're going to label this, let's make our vertex E. So I'm going to put an E down at the vertex. And then we've got D is our left ray. We've got, actually ED is the way you name the ray. EF is this middle ray. And then EG is our outside ray. And this is somewhere where if you have a couple different colors, this would be a good place to use them. Okay, so I'm going to label this angle like with a green. And I'll do this angle here. Pink. And then I'm going to do this angle, this obtuse angle, this whole thing here. I'm going to label that with this purple. Okay, so we actually have three different angles here. So our focus on this diagram is going to be how you write the measurement of an angle, some shorthand for that. Okay, so we're going to write, so for a green one, my green one, this one is going to measure 40 degrees. And if I actually write out, if I want to write out that measure, actually let's, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put in these other measurements too. Let's make this one 40, and I'm going to make this one 80. And then we'll get back to what the purple one is. Okay, so I could say, if I wanted to say the measure of, let's start with DEF. So DEF. So that's this pink one. If I want to actually write the measure of, I can use a little m like this. And that little m stands for measure of. And I'm going to say the measure of angle, DEF, equals 80 degrees. And like I said, the m, you just read that as measure of. So when you're working angle problems, if you come across a little m like that, don't, like in the diagram, be like, I don't see an M. I don't see M anywhere in my angle. That's not what the M means. The M just means measure of. Okay, let's do the next one. We've got the measure of angle FEG equals 40 degrees. So now what I would like for you to do is tell me in the chat, what is the measure of angle DEG? So that's the purple angle. What does that measure? We're going to take a break after this one, guys. I know we're getting restless. I'm getting restless too. Okay. This purple one is 120 degrees. DEG. And so angles are additive. And what that means is when they're right next to each other, you can add the angle measures together. We could also have subtracted, like let's say I told you the angle DEG was 120 degrees and angle DEF was 80 degrees. You could have subtracted to find angle FEG. Okay. All right, so finish writing that one down. And what we are going to do next is we're going to put this away for today, and we're going to save the last four for tomorrow.